All right, Kevin.
All right. Good
Kathleen.
afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Joint Funders and Providers Council meeting. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I think it's, well, my watch says 1:33. And we'll go ahead and move to the roll call attendance.
All right, I'm going to start with the Providers Council. Steve Blank. Andy Coble. Lariana Forsyth.
Tammy Hayes here representing for Lariana Forsyth.
Thank you, Tammy. Erica Giss.
Here.
Lieutenant Zach Haish.
Here.
Michael Gelazzo.
Here.
Christine Long.
Carrie Rollers here representing Christine Long.
Thank you, Carrie. April Lott. Ashley Lowry.
Here.
Kevin Marone.
Here.
Dolores Rafa.
Here.
Mickey Thompson.
Kip Corbo representing Mickey Thompson.
Thank you. And Judith Warren. And that brings us to 9 voting members here for Providers Council. Quorum is 7. And now we'll start with Funders Council. Kathleen Beckman.
Here.
Janine Evoli. Celeste Fernandez.
Here.
Amy Foster.
Ellen Rhymes here for Amy Foster.
Thank you. And Tammy Hillier.
Megan, just a reminder. So
You're
I know
voting.
we're bringing, yeah, so
Mhm.
Tammy's out.
Yes, yeah, we'll
Yep,
be voting
okay.
and Danielle later, yes. Blossom Capper.
Here.
Thank you. Elise Minkoff.
Here.
Joe Riddle. Julie Rocco. Anne-Marie Winter. Era Woodard.
Here.
And Karen Yacham.
Here.
Okay. Yeah, and that is 7. We have quorum for both councils.
All right. Well, we'll move forward with the consent agenda. And since April is unable to be with us today, I'll move forward with the consent agenda, which includes our joint provider funder council meeting summary and minutes, as well as our independent funder council meeting minutes. Seek a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion from Elise. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Zach. All right. All in favor, please say aye or raise a hand, or what are we doing? Chat? What's the? You prefer the chat, Megan?
If we could use the reactions,
Okay, the
we should
reaction.
have a reaction for the green check mark or the red X. If you abstain, please type abstain.
Favor then. Okay, now remove them, I guess.
Yeah, no one has opposed, so I would call that moved.
Consent agenda passed. Thank you.
I'm sorry, where are the green check marks?
They're under
Bottom-
reaction. Yeah.
Yeah, bottom middle, if you go down to react, at least it is on my screen. And then it gives you a bunch of,
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, I got it. Okay, there we go.
okay, we'll move forward with the funder council membership applications. Arrow?
Thank you, Kevin. So this item is only going to be people on the Funders Council present. So Megan will help check on the sheet to make sure whoever's giving the green check mark is on Funders Council that's voting. We have 2 applications for new members to Funders Council. The first one is Danya Perez from the city of Clearwater. Do we have a motion to approve her application to join Funders Council?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Elise.
Okay.
Okay, that was Karen first and Elise second. All in favor, use your green yes only if you are on Funders Council. And Megan, just let me know when you're ready.
Yes, everyone has voted
Okay,
to approve.
everyone voted to approve, so there's no,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, don't need to ask for denies. Okay, and then we have another application. Tammy Hellier has been out on extended leave from Pinellas Park, and Elizabeth St. Pierre has put in her application to serve on on Funders Council on behalf of Pinellas Park in Tammy's place. Do I have a motion to accept her application?
I'll make a motion.
Karen first. Do I have a second?
Second, Elise.
All in favor, use your green check mark or your red if you're opposed.
Everyone has voted in approval.
Very good. Well, we're very excited to have both Danya and Elizabeth. I think she goes by Lizzie if I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth. And so Megan, they are allowed to vote if there's anything going forward as of this motion, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, well, welcome. We're glad to have you. And I'll turn it back over. It looks like Sherry is next on the agenda.
Okay, I'm looking at the agenda. Oh, follow-ups from the joint January 24th meeting. As you all know, I was not present for that meeting. My predecessor was there. However, I do have some information to update on. There was a question about how many clients are currently enrolled in rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, and how many are waiting for referral. So as far as currently, what in HMIS world we call people stayers, so people who are actively housed within today within permanent supportive housing programs, we have a total of 1,631. Of those, adults without children, 1,348. And with children and adults, so households who have both, would be 283 individuals. And then for rapid rehousing programs, the total number of clients, 966. Adults without children, 336. And with children and adults, 630. And if you need any more breakdowns on that, I can provide that or send out after. And then the second question was, and how many people are waiting for referral? And we have, so for individuals who have been prioritized and are waiting for referral or self-resolving on the coordinated entry list, and they're active, for rapid rehousing, we have 522 individuals. And for permanent supportive housing, we have 170. And I see Helen has a question.
Thank you, Sherry, for that information. I just wanted clarification. So when we talk about the adults,
Mhm.
is that households or is that adults total? Like it can be two
Adults
adults in a
total.
house. Okay. And the same thing with children, 283. So that's total clients in general, not households.
Right. So,
Okay.
and there's even further breakdown between children and adults. So there's adult only, and then adults and children were mixed up in the adult with children.
Okay.
I can break it down even more with just children.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Yeah, I had a question. So you said we have 522 individuals who are on a wait list for referral,
Mhm.
are on the prioritized or waiting, and 170 are for permanent supportive housing.
Mhm.
That 170, that's for people who wait for years on an average, correct? For permanent supportive housing for a very
It
long time?
that can vary. That can be a tricky response based on what becomes available and the type of housing that becomes available, the number of the space, and so it's difficult label that.
Okay,
Um,
can't generalize too
can't
much, right?
generalize, yeah,
Okay.
can't generalize because if I was to give a wait list period that may not and that was to get out in the public, or it can actually make it to where people they would just figure they wouldn't be
We're gonna-
prioritized when they would be.
Okay. Okay. Too
If that
nuanced.
makes sense, I hope.
Yeah.
But we can dig a little bit further into that to get some more averages and various scenarios.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
It's a pretty good percentage of people that, you can't track down when, housing does become available. So I think that those kinds of the transient nature, those kinds of things do make it challenging to, you know,
Yeah, to put out a number.
analyze that perfectly.
Hmm. Yeah, it could be misleading. Um, and there's some more information available in the agenda that there is a shelter prioritization list. Meetings take place every other Wednesday at 1. And if you are interested, apparently Suzanne, our coordinated entry manager, she wanted to make sure that you knew how to reach out to her if you wanted to be part of that meeting as well. But any other questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll make sure to get the response you need. Thank you.
Other questions on this topic for the follow-ups?
This is Helen. I guess I would ask because it is misleading in as much as it doesn't count specific households. So if we knew what that looked like for households, then I think that might help us. Like for instance, I said I was asked the question, how many families are on the shelter prioritization list? And I can't remember. Let's say I said 69. And of that 69, 31 are St. Petersburg residents. And so the question was asked back to me. So if we had 31 beds, 31 other beds, then that could be taken care of. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
Households
well,
versus people. Like right now, we look like we need 1,000 placements, so 1,048 placements for adults versus the fact that we probably need, I think that's what I wrote, for rapid rehousing. Currently waiting for PSH 1631 adults, 1048 with children, 283
those are people who are currently housed, right?
Right. So
Right.
rapid rehousing, 996 clients are on the wait list. If we knew what that household looked like versus, and I don't know if we
966
can.
families, clients are actually housed. They're enrolled.
I think that's where the confusion might come because are they enrolled as far as they're with case management to be placed versus people that have not yet been referred to a rapid rehousing program to be connected to case management? I think that was kind of the difference we had before versus people that have been housed and just have that ongoing rapid rehousing. Does that make
Those
sense?
that that 966 is supposed to be what in HMIS world is called stayers. So there are people who are actually currently housed within rapid rehousing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
That makes sense. And then the 522 are on the coordinated entry list waiting to be referred.
Right.
But that is individuals as well, not households.
Not
It's
households. There are 51 families
551
for
families.
rapid rehousing and 2 for permanent supportive housing.
Got it. Thank you.
And that the
Does-
families, not households.
Does the data break out the households by size of households?
We can get that
I
for
just wondered-
for the folks
I just
waiting.
wondered if it helped for any sort of system-wide planning purposes. I mean, because there is a big difference between a household of 3 or 4 and a household of 7 and 8, as far as your inventory needs.
And if you're talking to landlords, and for
Right.
incentivizing, do we have such a need for, families with 4 children or something versus 1 or 2, just to have an idea, I guess,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
That would be good.
Harry, can you say the number of families again?
This was
Obviously.
so families on the active list waiting for referral or self-resolving is 51 for rapid rehousing. And we have 2 for permanent supportive housing, and that is for families.
But Karen has a question too.
Yeah, so thank you for this overview. I think this type of information is very, very helpful, and I'm just wondering if there could be some kind of cadence that this could maybe be sent out to either this distribution group, or it's kind of like that state of kind of how we're doing, and back to the families waiting for shelter. I know you and I just met earlier, but that is very, very helpful information, I think, for many of us in the system to always have our hands on regarding who's waiting to get to shelter, what's the wait list looking like for rapid rehousing, for PSH, especially, if grant season kind of opens up again, it's just always really good information for us to have on a regular cadence when we're looking at grants or funding opportunities.
Yes, I'm asking for this information now from Coordinated Entry Weekly. And so I'll try to get that out to everybody very soon.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
No?
I was just thinking either maybe it could just be a tab with that information on the shelter availability list, or just have it as a tab on the HLA's website page that has the data graphs that are at least by monthly. So if we're pulling information for
It's available.
grant proposals or whatever, you have it on there, and it would have some of the trend data on there. So we could see like if there's an uptick, we could see that. If they could just add like the monthly kind of points, like just have it as of the last date of the month or something. Obviously it changes throughout the month, but that way we all don't have to come to you guys all the time too, that it would just be on there and we could go to that website, for example, and all be using that same set of info.
And we've been talking about doing that. Now we wouldn't add it to the shelter prioritization or the shelter list that goes out weekly that you get.
Okay.
It had to be separate from that. But we are talking about trying to get this on the website, and the best way to do that and it not be too confusing for folks who are looking at it. So we've been trying to drill down to what are the actual data points that would be the most useful. And not cause confusion, and where to put it, of course.
There is a difference too, though, between people that are working with rapid rehousing programs that have not yet been housed, right?
Yes.
So there's 2 different parts to that. Okay.
And we can.
Anything?
Yeah, I was gonna echo Arrow's point about just giving a little context with the trends of that data. And I too think it would be great to have it on the CoC's website or the HLA's website. It really should be on both. But a tab to click on to see the most updated data with some kind of trends. Even the shelter report that comes out every Friday is appreciated, but just an overview of a graph of trends or something helps put it in context, like which way are we heading, or is it kind of stagnant, or yeah. And then I just had one question. I had a question about the rapid rehousing programs, the people that are in them, 966, 336 are adults without kids, and adults with kids is 630. And I should probably know this, I'm sure you all do, but if they're enrolled in a rapid rehousing program, that means that they are receiving wraparound services, correct? Or not necessarily?
They should be receiving some case management.
Okay, just wanted to.
Let me go
what I
back
thought.
and.
No, I'll echo that. We have rapid rehousing programs, and we are linking them actively to mental health, substance abuse services, healthcare. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, anyone else on this? Okay, moving on the agenda, the next item up is legislative impacts on funding and programs. I don't know if Sherry or Kathleen, were there specific, I have some comments to share on this, but I don't know if there are some specific things that either of you wanted to bring up.
I would, if you don't mind, I would love to speak on this.
Okay.
Okay. So we know with all the changes happening within the federal government and with the state and the lack of having a budget passed right now and all what's going on between the House and the Senate and the governor. Okay. That is happening. As far as I just met with the Florida Coalition on Ending Homelessness this morning, because everything's changing very quickly. Currently with the state, we actually have a lot of allies with the state. They are both houses are looking at maintaining funding for the CoC programs. And like DCF staffing, CoC staffing and Challenge and ESG, all the unified funding that we get. The issue, of course, is around getting that budget passed so that we can have those funds, so that DCF can then come up with their formulas to send out the funds. And so that part is where we're in a wait hold for a moment. The real concern is the federal government. And there is a stronger push about not having CoC, going from the CoC program into block grant programs. It's interesting. So that's more of a concern. And it being time limited, ESG. So permanent supportive housing. This is the stuff that we need to start educating anyone. We need to start educating when our U.S. representatives and senators come back in July. They're expected to be home. Educate and do site visits. Educate on the difference. Stop using the word permanent in permanent supportive housing. That's all that is heard is permanent, and they're not hearing people with significant disabilities who would end up in long-term residential care or other institutions and cost way more. And so we're going to be putting together some talking points and data to show the difference there, and that there really is a return on investment when you do invest in permanent supportive housing. They also, right now, there's a lot of compatibility around the senior population and veterans. So pushing this, we know we have about a third of the folks who are receiving services right now are in the crisis homeless system are over the age of 55. And we know that 62 to 65 age period is significantly high compared to all the other age groups. So that's something also to keep in mind. But this is going to be an area where we're going to need to pull in, our chambers of commerce, look at nonprofits as small business. We are all involved in a small business unless we're, municipalities. But that's another talking point. It's not, the ESG block grant idea. It's not exactly a straight line of reasoning here because there's a lot of complaints around how governments and where the funding goes and how it gets spent. And so if we're talking about small businesses, the CoC program has been very effective, and we are based on outcomes, not just outputs. And it's competitive. And so and if there is more trust in the current political landscape around local control and small business, then we should be pushing the nonprofit side of things, that we are all small business. And local control, you want local control, you look at a CoC because it is as local as it gets. So those are some things that we'll be rolling out, but that is where my concern has been more with the federal side. Of course, with the state side, there's concern there too, because we just don't know when those funds are going to come out. I know in my previous life with managing entities, sometimes we would get a schedule of funds, it'd be October, from DCF. But it's a different arm of DCF. I'm not expecting, it is just it's a different animal there. But to have the funds ready by July 1st could be stretching it. Especially if the state ends up going till June 30th to pass a budget. It'd have to then go to DCF to be distributed.
Budget is looking at reducing permanent supportive housing by 166,000 units across the country. 532 million reduction in homeless assistance grants. So, it's a pretty massive shift.
If anyone, if we can start having, Errol, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask, so like for the CDBG and home grant funds, under the continuing resolution, we actually just got our allocations this week, and they did hold steady from this current year. And so I was just wondering too, like Kevin, with like PSH money or other entities here for the federal money, are you under the same thing where the continuing resolution funds for your year in the future, and it's so the budget talks now or are for 2006, 2007 year?
Yeah, so that's the interesting part of it. I actually just got all of my HUD grants yesterday and today, which is actually 3 weeks earlier than last year. But still, these all expired in January and February. So, we've been fronting all of that money for months and months. And all of those HUD contracts got increases. So I'm going from getting increases to 2026, potentially a pretty large sweep, or at least shifting, obviously, this money to the state. And so that's where I think we have to begin to plan locally, if this were to, move forward. How will we try to retain the housing that we do have?
And I want to piggyback on that, in that receiving the contract, it was just a couple months ago, when by executive order contracts were not being honored for work already given. So,
Right.
and most of us can't wait for a lawsuit to go through and be on our side to make payroll. It's very difficult to come back from that if it was to be an extended period of time. So not to throw that out to, you know, you can control what you can control and you can plan for what you can, of course. But I do think we need to be planning for different scenarios and contingencies. Right now, the FCEH, and because of how important it is that we get in front of this, that we be very focused on permanent supportive housing, what it really is, meeting with the legislators when they come back home in July, not advocating, not doing the rah-rah as much as the here are the folks, you know, if you're a House representative, you have a 2-year turnover. How's it going to look when you have a lot of unhoused people suddenly and a major influx, or you're spending more money with hospitals? And it would be good to partner with some hospitals and institutions to really talk about that and the lack of beds and availability there too.
I think we have to be prepared to talk about housing first, philosophy a little differently as well, because there is a lot of criticism towards that. And I think the notion is that housing first implies that people can kind of do whatever they want, and there's no criteria whatsoever. And I'm not sure that that's actually accurate completely in the sense of it. In other words, there's still, even under a housing first philosophy and model, there's still a lot of assessment and judgment that goes into helping people get properly housed. For example, there's people that sometimes come into shelter or safe haven, and you know their health is so poor that the best advocacy that one can provide and give to them is to get them connected to sometimes assisted living care, nursing home care, because that's the right and appropriate thing for that individual. So you know, I just think it's important because the landscape is changing. Kathleen?
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, when you're talking about educating our, you know, federal legislators about housing first or permanent supportive housing, I'm wondering if, you know, Whit Blanton and Forward Pinellas, to my understanding, you know, it hasn't changed because I met with Whit a couple of months ago, I think, but, you know, they've been given that Pinellas County Housing Compact work to kind of do, to bring together and coordinate different efforts throughout the county about that housing compact that multiple municipalities have signed on to. And I don't know when Whit's next housing conference is planned, or if he wants to, you know, if they want to lead like an information session where this could be really talked about. What is permanent supportive housing and what does housing first mean, as educating, you know, decision makers who are at that higher level about the importance of that and protecting it. But I can reach out to Whit and ask what's planned about touchstones along the way for that housing compact and the housing plan that they've been given. I don't know if anybody on here knows you know, anything about their schedule of community interactions, because they had a big kickoff kind of summit a couple of years ago, and we haven't had a big roundtable thing like that since. I think it was at Largo, if I remember right. Maybe it was somewhere else, but
yeah, you have that right. It was the Largo Performing Arts Center.
yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. So I can reach out to Whit. He's a friend of mine, and ask, you know, if he has anything planned, but certainly whether he, you know, if he does, it's something we'd want to make sure we were part of to make it an educational opportunity for us. So I can do that and report back to Sherry, and Sherry can let our two groups know.
Thank you, Kathleen.
We will also, HLA will be sending out some information, and just after I'm digesting some things from today, from this morning, the most recent information, and thinking about next steps and how to, like, whether or not we're probably going to end up hosting some informational sessions ourselves to talk about language, narrative, data points, talking points, all of that could be useful before the senators and representatives come in. It can also be useful, of course, with the state as well, but I do believe the federal government is where we need to be focusing.
Well, and maybe members of our advocacy committee can make appointments with our U.S. representatives and sit down for a half hour and have a conversation,
And get those site tours.
Yes.
And,
yes.
and
That's right.
yes. And also bringing in, because there is a lot more reach, the people adjacent who are also impacted. So hospitals, our area agency on aging, I'm so glad we have them on board with our group, and other small businesses. So anyone with a chamber, that would be very helpful too.
The PSH provider, it's just critical that they see all of the contacts and work that goes into managing individuals and households, families in permanent supportive housing, the level of conversation, crisis intervention, discussions involved in this, that it is not what some people believe, that you just hand them over a key and they go on their way and there's no expectations of them, and that's just not accurate at all, at least not with a very well-run PSH program. And so I think it's critical to illustrate that point, that even people in PSH, they do get evicted. It does happen because there are expectations. But what you can say that when that does happen is that there has been multiple encounters, multiple meetings, multiple opportunities to mitigate that outcome. And ultimately it comes down to, safety of others and those kinds of things. So I just think those pieces are really important to articulate.
And also talking about expectations, people in PSH contribute as well. And there's so it's not a give me.
They pay rent. Yes.
They pay rent. Yes. Just like I pay rent, and I can get evicted if I do not follow certain, but I'm not held to, and this is housing first. I'm not held to additional standards, but although we're not going to get into that, not appropriate here. But yeah, there is a contribution. And then of course, we also talk about increasing income, making sure that people are connected to any sources of potential income that they may be available to them, in order for that to go up every year so that they can increase their rent and their contribution.
Any other comments, topics as it relates to legislative impacts? All right, well, it's going to be
I just had one additional thing as I glanced down, and I would think that I was going to ask Sherry if she had any idea of, if or when the federal government might come down with, we're going to dissolve or disband CoCs or not support them or whatever. But I know that could come tomorrow. I mean, it's just so unpredictable, to be able to plan for that. So I think we need, like you said, we need to have it on our radar, but you don't have any other information that would give us any kind of a time frame about if or when that decision would be made and how quickly we'd be expected to respond. I mean, all these other federal agencies that have been, hacked have, it's like, you're done on Thursday. You're done. So anyway.
Right. Yeah. It's very different from anything we've all experienced, I know. And I couldn't even predict. I don't know anybody who could. Yeah.
Carol?
Yeah.
I think at one of our, maybe our last joint meeting too, maybe it was brought up about like extreme property insurance hikes that are being seen as well. And I think that would be a good part to also share with the legislative message. So, if any of the providers are seeing those big, huge bills come in. It sounds like some had even like just done, maybe it was Perk, I think had brought it up last time, had just done like new roofs and all this stuff, and then still got hit with like a this huge increase in their insurance. That obviously affects the bottom line of our nonprofits to be able to operate and affects funding levels. And I had one other thing with that, and I'm trying to think what it was. I guess I'll leave it off there. I can't remember what it was.
Since we are talking about the federal government, I just wanted to throw it out there that I know that it was raised during the CoC board meeting, the last meeting we had. There was a question around whether or not we had received our scoring from the NOFO, and just received word, and I know that all the project applicants did as well, that there will be a debriefing on May 21st. And so there has been cuts in TA. We have participated in some technical assistance around disaster recovery. That was very targeted, very limited, but and the county, Arrow was there as well. HLA helped convene that. So there is some limited technical assistance. It's not as robust as it was before. But that was a concern of whether or not we would hear back on how, where we did well and where we could improve on that application. And so you should all receive, if you were a project applicant, that information, and we'll be sharing that with the whole body at some point after that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next agenda item is barriers and recommendations for increasing positive exits. Era.
Hello, thank you. So at our last Funders Council meeting, we did start taking a look back at the HLA data page on the inflow and outflow trends and things like that. What we had noticed was it seemed like there's more inflows than outflows still, which happens. So obviously, as we talk about the water faucet being turned on, that's obviously a fundamental problem before it even gets to our emergency shelters. If there's more people coming to them every month than they can handle on the exits. So our Funders Council, we had started talking about some different kind of components to that to look into further. And I think we have some report outs on some of those in a little bit. We talked about how to enhance our coordination with landlords and really expand the number of participating landlords in the throughout the county to help our rapid rehousing and shelter programs be able to exit more people to permanent housing. And then we had also talked about, which Elise is presenting on a little bit too, is an alternative workflow for some of our seniors that are newly entering the system for their first time. But wanted to open up from the providers too, if there's other kind of key components that we may want to kind of look at. Obviously, we can say in general we need more housing, but if there's any kind of targeted approaches that you all have seen that have been effective that maybe we could look to expand upon, or if it's because you're seeing like a larger recidivism rate or anything like that, that really maybe it's that case management after they're getting housed. That's the big thing. But so that I just wanted to open it up for discussion since we have both groups here, and see if there's any other kind of targeted approaches we could be looking at. I don't know if I can see everyone's hands on my schedule. Let me see if I can rearrange. I don't know. Does anyone have anything to add to it? I don't see any hands up at the moment.
I just want to say that I'm hopeful, like we have a new program through Pinellas County, and Lieutenant Hayes there at Safe Harbor, although it's not particularly like a housing placement program. It is that case management model for the individuals at Safe Harbor. We just started this program, but it's there's a 3-year and a 5-year grant. So this is a long-term approach to helping kind of with the recidivism and revolving door aspect that we've seen at Safe Harbor, and the high caseloads that Lieutenant Hayes' social workers have had over the years. So this is Boley and Helios, along with Zach and his team, are working together collaboratively to, hopefully make an impact here. And my hope is that this will have sort of then an indirect on some of those positive exits. I don't know, Zach, you have anything, he's a little bit more on the ground with this than me right now. But it's just, it's kind of just getting started, getting the team together and getting all of our processes in place.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been going since basically the beginning of the middle of February is when they really got going. It is amazing to see how well people will respond and how well people can respond given the appropriate level of case management assistance. Like Kevin was saying, there's been so many, our caseload for our social workers is extremely high. But we're actually seeing the needle move a little bit out here with some of our most vulnerable populations. I actually emailed April. Is it the board meeting or this meeting where we recognize good things and great things?
No, it's all the meetings,
All right, yeah.
So,
Let's do that real quick. So
yes.
one of the most troubled clients we have encountered has been here, was here for about 2.5 years, and just completely had a breakdown after her husband died, and her mental health issues got completely worse. She couldn't stay where she was anymore because everything was in her husband's name, and she didn't have the mental wherewithal to continue her housing. So she's been with us for the last 2.5 years, and when we got this TIEH grant going, she was like on the short list of people that we needed to connect to them right away. And she was placed a couple of weeks ago, and I actually shot April an email because it was a completely collaborative effort between Boley, Ilios, and then actually one of April's case managers was the glue that kind of held it all together as it went through. Her directions case manager from the community was I think it was the reason that it went as smoothly as it did. We were expecting her to come back from her placement very quickly and to not work out just based on her level of need, but it didn't. The TIEH case managers through Boley really set her up for success, and then the DFL case manager that was working with her has maintained continuity and contact with her to ensure that she's doing well in her new placement, so that she doesn't have to go back to the street or go back to homelessness. So I mean, I think what Kevin's saying is absolutely accurate. I think we're going to be able to move the needle a little bit with some of our most vulnerable and troubled populations out here at Safe Harbor.
That's amazing. I remember when we did the Safe Harbor study, one of the big things that we noticed was that Safe Harbor really had like the shortest period of time that people would stay before turning over. Like they'd sleep a night or two, they'd go somewhere, they might return, but their each stay was so short that it didn't even give them time to meet with case management. And so I know you guys have been doing a really good job with that, and your case managers have been, purposely making sure to engage a lot with the folks out in your outdoor pod as well, and try and work on getting them to the point that they can at least get indoors as that first step towards stabilization too. So it's going to be great to see how things progress out there as well. So very good. Do we have any other providers on here that want to share if they've seen something work really well lately?
Karen has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't see it. Go ahead.
That's okay. Not so much from the provider standpoint, but I just want to share kind of three things that are in motion. So I know I mentioned this at the Funders Council meeting. So we are kind of revamping the CABI program. So that was a grant that came down from the feds. It was a cooperative agreement to benefit homeless individuals and families. So we're renaming that program. And as long as my budget is approved this year, we're going to be looking at procuring that service a little bit differently. So kind of taking the best pieces of that program, doing a reprocurement. We believe that those wraparound services are so important for kind of that scattered site approach. So that program should be coming up soon for procurement. The second thing I wanted to share was with Bayside Clinic reopening, we're also in a procurement process right now with the Department of Health where we're looking at increasing the services that are being delivered at the clinic. So we've had mental health services there through Directions for Living, but we're also looking to have substance use services on site so that you're not necessarily going from Bayside Clinic to another provider. All of those services can be right at the kind of main clinic and co-located at our vehicles. And then the third thing, which is also in live procurement, is the opioid settlement funding. So just a reminder, one of the top priorities was safe recovery housing. That procurement closes June 2nd. It's on our website if you need additional information. But there's real opportunity right now with either general fund or kind of settlement funding, which can proceed forward with more robust programs for community. So just a lot of exciting things, and I'm really hopeful that we're going to get some dynamic programs through some of those new procurements.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And also, in the last Safe Harbor report, I noticed, and I know you talked about the quarterly meeting too, that you had in last quarter, 11 people moved to assisted living, which I know we've had a higher senior population and we've had difficulty. I know on our end, like our street outreach person has a really hard time getting people to want to buy into that because they want their independence, they don't want their money taken, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's exceptional too. And if your case management team has any tips or tricks on how to market that to your clients, definitely share out with the group because I think that would be helpful for us to know. So anything else on that topic, or I'll keep us moving on time and move over back to Sherry, it looks like.
Okay, this will be fairly quick. Streamlining application processes for future funding. When we developed this agenda, it was prior to the last board meeting and subsequent executive committee meeting, where we are now going to have a work group, which is wonderful, around the NOFO process, the review and rank committee process, and looking at the scoring tool. And as part of that, I just wanted to say that I know April had mentioned that this has been done in the past within the CoC. I'm aware of one time when it did, where there was a universal application so that we could wrap in the state funding along with the federal as well. And so that it would really make it more efficient. And as far as getting funds out once DCF was to send them our way and contract with us, because we know that throughout the year, we may get new funds coming in. That's been historically, or recent history, that's been the case. So looking forward, if that was to happen, we wouldn't have to reconvene another review and rank, put out another RFA, that sort of thing. We'd already have a reviewed and ranked list that had been approved by the CoC. And that list could also, because we don't know necessarily how much will be coming out even throughout the year, past July 1st even, that would be a good list to share with all the local funders as well and see, these are the projects that we as a CoC decided were important and should go forward. So that's all I have to add about that. More to come.
All right.
Gap analysis update.
Yeah, back to you again.
I spoke with Kathleen this morning. Kathleen, did you want to say anything?
You can start off if you want. I mean, we had a good conversation and it's part of the MOU that we are looking at revising, or we're working on revising, and it's there. But yeah, you can go ahead and start, Sherry, and I can chime in.
So there's been of course, as part of the CAP, we had to come up with a plan for the gap analysis using 2024 data. We, after we were responding to a lot during that time, came up with a plan. I have created a summary report that includes everything as outlined in that plan. But I want to just say that all of the information is coming from, first, let me back up. HUD, the requirement is that the only requirement, it's very non-prescriptive. And so every CoC does this very differently. The only requirement for the gap analysis is that it include the housing inventory count data. And that then informs the CoC plan, which is basically our priority population interventions at a bare minimum, because that then informs what we can spend money on from DCF, from the state. So when we have, for instance, challenge grant funding or ESG comes through to our CoC through HLA, like through that contract with DCF, and we subcontract those funds out. If prevention is the priority intervention, that's our CoC plan. That's pretty much where we're limited. Now it's been, of course, our priority interventions and populations have expanded. And so that will allow for a lot more diversity of housing types or service types going forward. So that's good. And so the gap analysis that's been created is based on the PIT report. And within the PIT report, it's called the PIT report, but it actually does contain quite a bit of information around gaps and what is, current and exists. It goes beyond what is required for PIT reporting. We are doing that now. HUD just opened up the PIT and HIC portal for us to report on that. So that happens every year. We contract with Freeman to do this larger report because of the information it has, and it actually is very well. People and other CoCs are like, this is great. So we have that information, but to make it more robust, of course, we would definitely include the HIC data as well, and then system performance measures. There's a program called Stella. If Sam Picard was on here, he'd be really excited. So it basically does some modeling showing where some gaps are, and does it in a nice visual format. And so that's included as well, those graphs. So that's done. It's going to go on to executive committee just for some back and forth discussion to make sure that this is meeting what they're looking for. And then basically the CoC plan, I just want to throw this in there. The CoC plan and what Kathleen was alluding to, I believe, was the CoC strategic plan versus a CoC plan. In our MOU, the word strategic is in there, what HUD requires, and so sometimes a lot of this is around how we not having common language. Definitely a strategic plan as an implementation of our plan is great, and we're all for it, 100%. But for a CoC plan, the actual item that is due to the state by July 15th is our priority interventions and populations, along with the data that informed all that. And so, of course, we have all that already, CoC approved, ready to go. If we were to try to do a strategic plan by July 11th board meeting, let's say the CoC board didn't even meet, which we're going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Going to put that out in the universe here, but to get that done in 2 months, but also have not only pull together the group that's going to be the core team designing it, but getting the input we would need, and then it go through all the committees and just the processes that we would need to go to, and to make it meaningful, we discussed this during the executive committee, and after Freeman releases his PIT report, we will beef up the existing gap analysis to include more of that, and then do a strategic planning process. And it just makes sense to use that. So there'll be more around the fall time.
Yep. And I appreciate that. And I'm on board with using the same language, a CoC plan / strategic plan. And it's one thing that we're looking at in the MOU about whether or not to continue with using instead of strategic plan, the CoC plan. And as Sherry said, the CoC plan requirements are the priority populations and interventions and the PIT report and HIC, and we've got that. But I would, as Sherry and I have also talked, as well as the executive committee, the Alice 2025 report just came out, and I think for Pinellas County, and that's a good one to look at as well. And I think Sherry mentioned that you were going to do maybe, or ask Freeman to do a shorter executive summary analysis of that PIT report that'll help us, identify where the gaps are. But I mean, I think, as we've said before, there are gaps everywhere. We don't have enough of anything is not totally robust. And so, but we have a priority list, priority populations, priority interventions. It's backed up by data, and we'll go from there. But I'm excited about our strategic plan, CoC plan, and us developing that with a 2025 data and having that, fully ready to go towards the end of the year. And, as you all know, who have been at the Board of Directors meetings, Sherry and her team have met each one of the corrective action plan timetables. And so we have a structure of how we're moving forward on all of that. So it's exciting. It's good to be heading in the right direction and communicating effectively and really making good progress. Any questions on that gap analysis or suggestions on key documents that you want to be considered or looked at, you think should be?
I was just on this arrow. I was curious if I know there was work done on Built for Zero, and there were certain fundamental components to it that needed to be completed or like established in order to really get that moving smoothly. And I know like you guys have been working on written standards and things like that, and those are some of those components. We have the individualized list, but I'm just wondering if there's certain things, you don't have to like say what those are, but if they will be kind of a factor in that CoC plan or strategic plan on like these are the other gap parts in Built for Zero that we're working toward in that time frame. And then also potentially if we have any kind of measurable, I know overall we want rare brief in one time, but kind of what performance measures we want at the end of it so we can measure how we're doing and what the obviously federal funding or whatever might derail us along the way, but kind of where we're headed.
So yeah, and so as far as like the strategic plan, as implementation, that would be great to add to the CoC plan, like to make that part of a bigger, we are definitely just as far as timing goes, making sure that we're in compliance, that we do have what we need to be in compliance. Moving
I'm talking
forward,
about the
it'd be
longer
great to have it
range.
more robust.
The longer range part. Yep, for sure.
And having indicators and goals and targets added to that is definitely, I think that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, and we had talked about how ideally we'd have for each agenda, Board of Directors agenda, or these agendas that we have for our different committees would be tied to a strategic plan component, or item on the strategic plan. So this relates to why are we doing this? Why are we discussing this? Because we have it on our strategic plan, one-pager document that summarizes, what our functions are and our goals are. So more to come, but we're making progress.
So I know we're, just to keep everyone on time, we have Elise Minkoff on, who I think Megan's going to bring up Elise's. She's got just a quick PowerPoint on kind of showing overall on a potential senior housing workflow that they've been working on with the Area Agency on Aging and some other partners. So Elise and Megan, you want to load that up and start?
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for having me present. I am going to have a couple caveats here. This project, this pilot project, came together over a handful of meetings prior to the hurricane. And it has subsequently been put off to the side, and you'll hear the reasons why. But it is due to the hurricane and a couple other contingencies. This project objective, slide 1, please. Next one. The project objective came out of the Housing Authority, and specifically Neil Brickfield and I got to talking about the issue, the rising number of seniors who were homeless or on the verge of homeless in Pinellas County. So the objective of this pilot was to identify, support, and house seniors over the age of 75 who become homeless for the first time in Pinellas County and transition them from homelessness to temporary housing and ultimately to permanent housing. Next slide. We had some key partners that we identified, and I'll give you a short list of them. We were going to develop more. St. Vincent's, the Homeless Leadership Alliance, the Area Agency on Aging, the Pinellas Community Foundation, and 211. Next slide. And as a result of some internal planning at the Housing Authority, we thought that those would be the key partners to initially collaborate with. We had one meeting prior to the hurricane, and it was a good meeting. It actually raised more questions and considerations than anything. And that's what I'm going to ask of everybody on this Zoom today, is that by no means does the Housing Authority have all the nuances of this pilot project outlined. It was in the very, very early stages. So if you have suggestions, questions I can take back to our resident experts, I'm happy to follow up with you and get those answers, or actually take back those ideas that we can start roundtabling this again. We identified 3 areas that we really needed to flesh out. The first was the resident, the second was the facilities, and then the system. How does the system work? Next, please. We had residents entering the system, of course, homeless, first-time homeless senior. And at that time, we had the opportunity, because we manage Lilman Heights for Pinellas County Trust, which are individual homes, opportunity to launch this pilot out there at Lilman Heights, which we manage. And we identified 2 homes out there. Unfortunately, due to the hurricane, they were uninhabitable, and we could not even do remediation in order to make them so. So in a sense, we lost the ability to use the Lilman Heights. On top of it, we had a great partnership with Habitat, and it was during that transition from the county trust to Habitat for this particular piece of property. And Habitat was willing to let us go ahead and enter into a pilot project with the county. And then when they took possession of the property, we would be prepared to transition the pilot somewhere else. So we had really great initial partners, and the hurricane season just didn't help us. So the whole purpose of this is to use temporary housing until there is a project-based voucher opening. We have 3 senior properties that we own, and they're dispersed throughout the county. And on average, we have 2 seniors turnover every month for a variety of reasons. And we know that we have those two, and that we could use those two per month for this pilot program. And also use project-based vouchers. We have approximately 700 project-based vouchers. They're valuable to the Housing Authority, so we use them carefully. But we did feel like the foundation for this program would be the project-based voucher. Next slide. And what we wanted to do was collaborate with partners and the Homeless Leadership Alliance to identify seniors over 75 who are currently experiencing homelessness for the first time. And we really need to establish a referral system and to create wraparound services for when they would enter a particular home that we would identify. We would have temporary housing facilities, one for men, one for women. We envision 2 to 3 men in the house, as well as a separate house, 2 to 3 women. We visualized a 3-bedroom complex, and we would assure that we had wraparound services, not only from the Housing Authority, but from our partners out in the community, where we would provide necessary amenities, support services, meals, health care, and other types of social support. We identified some key documents that we or our partners would help these seniors restore or get copies of. And it was Medicare and Medicaid, obviously prescriptions, family contact, banking, Social Security, power of attorney, etc. So we kind of identified that area. And what we wanted to do, next slide, is to, and you see the breakout of the houses, is to provide them more with just the basics. We want to provide them with laundry services, utilities, cable TV, of course, making sure it was ADA compliant. Next slide. And we would use our project-based voucher, and at a point in which there was availability in one of our senior complexes or one of our multifamily complexes, at a project-based voucher, we would do unit turnovers, change the tenant selection plan if necessary, and do all the things we need to do to get them into a project-based voucher on a particular property. We hope to cover a large part of rent and utilities, and to also furnish the units, and do a variety of other things. We wrestled with pets, clothing, other kinds of needs that these seniors might have. So that was pretty much the gist of the program. You're looking at a slide right now that identifies next steps. And you can see that we were really just in the planning stage and wanted to really do this pilot. And we envisioned actually being able to place about 75 seniors over the course of a year. You know, that was a lofty goal, but we really felt like the Housing Authority would be able to do that. Additionally, we felt comfortable that out at Rainbow Village, which right now is 2/3 public housing, we are opening in the fall Heritage, and Heritage will be a senior property, and there will be 84 units available out in that area of Ridgecrest. It's going to be a beautiful facility. I'll make sure that when we do the opening, that everybody on this Zoom gets an invite. I would love for everybody to come out. We're very, very proud of it. We are transitioning out of public housing. So if any of you know Rainbow Village, it needs to be transitioned. So phase 1 is Heritage, it's senior. Phase 2 is also senior, and phase 3 will be multifamily. So in the long run, we'll have over 300 plus units out there when it's all said and done. So this was really the pilot project, and we kind of got derailed a bit, and we feel it's a good pilot, and the organizations that we brought forward to collaborate with were very eager. We just now need to find 2 homes that that the housing authority doesn't necessarily have to purchase, and to get them ADA compliant, and we're willing to kick this pilot project off. So I'll entertain any ideas, thoughts, questions.
Thank
I have
you.
a,
Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
good. This means we're on the mark.
I had 2 things. Number one, this looks fantastic. I would, just for clarification, some of the services that are provided, it would be as needed or as required, right? I mean, if they don't need somebody to do their laundry or clean their unit or something, it's just as needed, correct? Something like that, probably?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then
Yeah.
I would think it would be a good opportunity to partner again with a local faith-based group or something if someone there wanted to, you've got like transportation, you've got toiletries, linens, food, and if they needed help walking a pet, those kinds of things might be, we might have some volunteer groups that could help with all that. And then the only other thing
Absolutely.
you had mentioned we just need 2 houses. That's all we need is 2 3-bedroom houses or something. But, I'm
Right.
part of the Community Foundation of Tampa Bay, the Pinellas, coalition or whatever, and we review some grants and we did scholarships, and I'm fairly new to it. I think I've been there about a year, maybe but anyway, they've got a bunch of very wealthy donors that leave endowments or whatever and have this organization manage their gifts and their legacy gifts. But if they've got ins with people with wealth, and they mention we've got this housing authority that wants to have 2 homes to do this, I wonder if they might be able to gently ask any of their wealthier clients if there's a home that anybody knows of, or would they be willing to just purchase one for you? I don't know. It's just something I can reach out to Marlene Salo.
Well, no,
Do you know
I
Marlene?
I serve on the Pinellas Council for the Community Foundation. I've been doing it for about 7 years. So we initially started with the Pinellas Community Foundation, had a meeting with them. And again, this all kind of went sideways with the hurricane. So I'll make a note of that, and I'm happy to do outreach to Marlene.
Yeah. It's just an ask, right? It's just her ask her ideas or opinion. Yeah. I think it looks wonderful. Yeah.
I think now, putting that on everyone's radar too, just as far as properties in the area, or like, for us jurisdictions, if we have property that, is surplus land, for example, if there's lots or anything, whether it's a new build or, if we can find any that's a house that needs some fixing up and the ADA components in it, I think that would be great. Are there any other questions?
I have a question. I noticed on the first slide that it said it was for non-veterans, and I know we have a lot of resources at VA. I'm assuming that's why, but I just wanted to check in on that because we don't have anything that supportive for our elderly, unfortunately.
Right. We did want to identify non-veterans. The Housing Authority has VASH vouchers, and we're actively using those. So we really wanted to direct around non-veterans at this point in time. really to focus on the first-time homeless senior, just the general.
I think one of the other benefits to this type of arrangement, we have a lot of folks that have lived on their own or maybe with their spouse, and their spouse just passed, and that's why they're becoming homeless. So they're very hesitant to necessarily have a new
Right.
roommate. But now if they've lived in a home with somebody else for a little bit of time too, and you have, let's say, a 2-bedroom open up too, they may be more willing to have a friend there that they would go live with somewhere else since they've already been living together. Or maybe it shows which ones need their own space and didn't do well living with others too, I guess. But so I could see that benefit, that they get accustomed to sharing a home with somebody new, and kind of a trial situation too.
Right.
So these are also things, I guess, I don't think Joe Riddle was on here today. I know we've got Danya on here and we've got St. Pete on here too, but just thinking about too, when, putting out our public facilities applications in the future of considering these types of projects too, it's kind of a different way to expand shelter in a way that is more ADA accessible, and definitely probably a lot less traumatic for people experiencing homelessness for their first time, especially at this age. They have very limited ability to increase their income and so forth too. So often they end up getting stuck at shelter for a longer time because of that. So any other questions? I'm not seeing any hands, so I guess we can wrap up that item, and I think I got. All right, so back to, I guess,
Well,
Kevin.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Elise.
Thank you, Elise.
Kevin, I'm returning it back to you on the leak and data collection since April's not here.
I was going to do that, Kevin.
Oh, okay.
Thank
That's
you,
right.
thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, I'll just weigh in briefly. I know that, so April and I have attended the March LEAK Lived Experience Advisory Committee meeting, and April was there to talk. We were both there to talk, listen, and participate, but April gave a presentation a little bit about directions for living, but she also asked for feedback from people in that committee about the point in time count and what went well, what did they notice, and that we had some concerns about participation of when we were out doing those interviews. And, some of the feedback I think April wanted to share was that people said that, people who are unhoused were hiding deeper into different spaces, into the woods, or that they were fearful about participating and real hesitant. And they're very much aware of the anti-camping legislation. A person or two mentioned drones overhead and thinking that, they were being watched, or that the police or other, entities were looking for homeless individuals. And so there really was this expression of fear and distrust, and it makes us concerned that it will, that the anti-camping legislation in particular will impact our numbers, whether they're realistic and that people are not here, or whether people are here and just deep into hiding and not being accurately reflected in our data for the PIT count. But yeah, just real leery of law enforcement. On the other hand, just as, at the last Board of Directors meeting, we gave those certificates of appreciation to Gary and Kat and Michael with the LEAK committee. But, Gary went to each municipality that had law enforcement and talked to law enforcement about that, interacting with law enforcement pamphlet that they helped to develop. And he said it was all positive. And so there are lots of positive interactions. I don't want to paint law enforcement as being, not good partners, because I think they are good partners, but I'm not a homeless individual out there who has other challenges and different interactions and hears different stories and things than I hear. So I think April just wanted to bring that to the group, that was, a pretty resounding message from that LEAK meeting. Yeah. Karen?
Yeah, and I just want to add too that I think it's not limited to law enforcement. You know, for our street medicine vehicle that goes out, that street medicine team, we are seeing lower engagement. So we're still seeing the individuals that are living unsheltered and we're trying to engage, but some of the feedback is they don't want services, they don't want to engage, they don't want their information collected. So, you know, it is a trend. We're still very busy at Bayside and MMU. But the street med van, which is really targeted for those that are unsheltered, we are seeing some declines.
And you don't think it's because there are fewer people, it's this kind of fear and apprehension?
I don't think it's, I mean,
Yeah.
we're seeing them. So they're saying they don't want to be served. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you. Ashley, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, I was basically going to say the same thing. I was out in the point in time and I had several people just absolutely refuse to talk to us because of the new laws. Also, I don't know if this is the right avenue to talk about this, but I do think taking a different approach for the next point in time and maybe hosting events designed to get people out and talking to us, like a North County, Mid County, South County resource fair of some kind where we're offering resources on site and can interview them at the same time. I think there needs to be more incentive than us trying to go out and find where everyone is at and get their information. Maybe in a more friendly, welcoming kind of environment instead of us just assuming someone's homeless and trying to talk to them.
Yeah. One thing that struck me is that around our point in time count, it was like the week before, maybe 10 days before, we had that string of cold night shelters, like 5 in a row. It was really cold. And we had to turn people away at First United Methodist Church in Clearwater. It just got so full. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, why, I wish we could be out here interviewing all these, over 100 people, 134, 140, whatever we had. Or, at least approaching them in a safe, warm place. But since we know it's at the end of January, maybe an evening event with hot chocolate and, food or something that will have them come as well. Something to think about.
For some reason cannot find a raise hand function like I normally can on mine. So and I didn't want to just break in, but I want to add that I know that has Victoria's talked about in committee with Pitt. They've talked about having drop-in events, and I know that they tried it for a youth one time, and that's a different story. But they have been talking about it in committee. One of the drawbacks is you lose some data around the heat map. Where things are happening,
right.
But it's still being considered and chewed on. I wanted to add to what Kathleen was saying, because I was at that leak meeting as well, and just to reiterate, it wasn't it was to gauge. April was trying to gauge perception versus reality, really trying to understand. So you hear about the drones that came out on October 2nd, and everybody knew that October 1st was a date, for this law to be taking effect. The drones are everywhere. So, what is teasing out what is perception versus reality? And there wasn't a lot of feedback saying that, this person was arrested. That sort of thing did not come out. And so the other part that April was able to provide was some more education around Pitt. And people did avoid taking the survey because especially one of the questions is, where did you sleep last night? And being afraid that would end up, that then they would be targeted, because if they tell you where I'm sleeping, then you're going to come find me. And if I'm in a group, okay. So we had to reiterate, the privacy, who gets the data, how the data is shared, that sort of thing too. And so, and in hopes that can be shared out broader throughout the community.
I see Helen, oh no, that's my cursor. Sorry. It looked like a little hand there. Sorry. Okay. I
know a lot of time went into the flyer, and I did a a conversation with Gary Small from LEAC yesterday, who I think, is just looking for maybe some help in getting the flyer distributed. The HLA is getting them printed, but I kind of told him that I would bring it up here on this call meeting today, since I have, pretty much a representation of the whole community here to, just help bring those flyers to your designated areas to get it out to people.
Helen, you've got your hand up? Yeah.
I do this time. I was toying with it before, Kathleen, so I feel like you were in my head. But since Kevin said that, Kevin, I wonder if it wouldn't be something that we could just get. I mean, we don't have street outreach in every place, but it would be an opportunity to have those conversations. I certainly would be willing to have our street outreach person take it with them. Same as we do the cards about the House Bill 1365, all of that we take with us out in the community. So we could do that on our end. We have those conversations, and we're a little different because we have PATH with us in our community. So the majority of people that are from St. Petersburg and stay in St. Petersburg quite often know that that they can connect with PATH in a different way, but that's not every officer. And so, interestingly enough, I did see less people and had more people tell me during PIT, like, no, I don't really want to, I'm not interested, than I've ever had before, even knowing PATH is in our area. So, but I will say these were individuals who I had not connected with in the past, and I am out in the field quite a bit, and I didn't know the individuals. So it made me feel like they were maybe new to our area, maybe here, coming from wherever because it's cold in other places. It got colder earlier this year than it did in other places, or got colder up north more sooner than it normally does, is what I'm trying to say. Because I didn't know these individuals that were in spaces that I'm in routinely. So that is something to think about as well, is are we actually connecting with the individuals that are in our area all the time?
Yeah. Kevin? Yeah.
Oh. Zach, I think.
Okay. Lieutenant H?
So I was wondering, you guys can pull the ARC GIS, or I don't remember what it's called. You guys can pull the data, right? Was there any core, or has anybody looked at, like, maybe the amount of law enforcement that actually completed a survey versus how many law enforcement that completed a survey last year? Was there a big dip with the amount of law enforcement officers that were able to complete a survey this year versus how many were able to complete one last year? And then, like, maybe is there able to be data pulled of, like, how many were started by law enforcement and then abandoned in the process?
I will say that we just had that conversation this morning that we're interested in seeing, not about law enforcement, but looking at trying to see if we can collect this. It was discussed. Who started it? Where were the non-completers, and how many compared to previous years, so that we can make inference based on that people started and then stopped during a certain section. But I would like Victoria. Are you on right now?
I am. Yes.
Okay. Would you like to respond to any more of Lieutenant Hayes' question there?
Sure. So we are doing our best to gather as much data as we can to see what impacts everything that has gone on over the last year have really had in our community and in our PIT data. So some of the things that we are pulling, or we are starting to pull, we'll have to see how the data looks once it's pulled, of course. But some of the things that we're starting to pull are, for instance, the number of surveys that were started where people would not, for instance, give their first name or the area that they are normally located this year as compared to years past. How many people aren't interested in giving their social security number this year as compared to years past? So we really are trying to see if we have fewer people out there, or if it looks like there are simply fewer people engaging with us based on PIT data. So that is what we're really working on right now. If there are other suggestions for that, that work within the data that we have, I'm happy to take those suggestions as well, because it's really important that we capture and acknowledge this data.
Yes, and so we'll take that, Lieutenant Hayes, we'll take that back to Freeman and HMIS and see how we can pull that.
I've already sent the message over just to be sure.
Thank you.
Arrow, you have your hand up?
Now I got to remember what I was gonna.
Oh goodness.
I keep
I
keep
hate
listening. Oh, I know what it was. Okay. So to Helen's point with kind of different people in the area, thinking about people that are street outreach are engaged with by phone too. Just to put it in perspective, Todd texted me this morning that he had 26 calls from last night when he left work to this morning.
Wow.
It's like
Wow.
it keeps increasing. And so I don't know if word is spreading, who the street outreach people are or whatever, and they're just like funneling all calls to a few people, because I can't imagine that's all Largo with 26 calls and overnight. So yeah, it was 26 calls and 14 voicemails to respond to. So some call a couple times, try and get through or whatever. But I think we had kind of started delving into a little bit too about maybe the day after PIT, having like some of our street outreach folks or some of the other agencies call and make contact with their clients they're already working with. But I guess we'd need to know, well, I guess they could ask on the phone if they did PIT. The only problem with that is we'd need to make sure that it's short enough time period that it's not going to take up like too many minutes on their phone and things like that, as one aspect. So I don't know, but it is tricky to measure too. Lieutenant Hayes, do you know, and I know this is not on the end that we want to see things by any chance, but it might be another data point too. Like, I know all the law enforcement agencies are going to the same police system that sheriff's office uses, the data system. And I don't know if there's any coding for different types of calls. For example, if it is a homeless related encounter or something like that, to be able to, or if the person's transient, maybe they don't have a permanent address, maybe that's a better way. But that, whether it's trespasses or anything like that, because you can take that data too. It doesn't mean necessarily everyone's going out committing violent crimes. It may be trespassing because they have nowhere else to go, but you could kind of monitor the trends county-wide if all the law enforcement agencies are using that, just to kind of see for folks that aren't being counted in HMIS necessarily what the trends are in volume.
Yeah, so that was a request when that committee started meeting to put all the ideas together. I want to say about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I put that request in. There's going to be a breakout of basically a checkbox. Was this a homeless individual? There's going to be, I can't remember because like I said, it was that long ago. But we did set up some different demographics to be able to help track the population a little bit better, to help out, figure out where resources are needed in order to engage them in the spots that they're in. Yeah, I can. Yeah, it was a verbal meeting. I can reach out to the lieutenant that's in charge of it and see which ones we set up, and then I can report back the next time we meet.
Okay, are we all good then? Oh, I can scroll through. Does anybody else have their hand up? I'm just double checking real quick. I think we're all good. Okay. Okay. All right. So next on the agenda is the work group updates, emergency shelter written standards with
Yeah.
Judith.
Yeah, good afternoon. The work group was able to meet. It's been a couple weeks out since we did. We were able to get through the entire document and make necessary edits. A reminder that these are standards. We're not going into detail, creating policy, if you will, but these are high-level standards. We do have one sticking point that still needs to get resolved. I know Sherry is working on that. And as soon as we get that clarified, they will be circulated for your review, and then they will be final if everyone agrees. And thank you to everyone that joined the work group.
Any questions for Judith? I'm just looking through, flip. Okay, all righty. Then we have the Landlord Liaison Housing Navigator Work Group. So Arrow and I can review that. Arrow, I have the work group findings and suggestions from April 17th. I was going to just highlight some key things. Do you want to start, or do you want me to do that?
I actually had gotten double booked, so I wasn't able to make it to that. So yeah, if you could share that out, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So some recommendations for recruiting new landlords include asking current landlords to make some recommendations if they have any peers. You know, if we have the resources, the time to contact as many properties as possible, even those that are not, quote, affordable, to see if they have any recommendations other places. Connect with shared housing landlords, and pass out as many business cards as possible to people who may encounter more affordable rent housing. Contact needs to be face-to-face interactions are incredibly effective, and reliably responding to phone calls, emails, and text is just to show that we're going to be good partners with potential landlords. Stability is key, to really emphasize that we are there to help ensure that a tenant is stable, and that there will be programs, processes, and agency support that'll be explained. Personalizing it, explaining that homelessness is touching everyone. Anyone's family would know someone, I think, that has experienced homelessness or is potentially facing homelessness or is afraid of homelessness, especially in light of our hurricanes last year's, just to drive engagement and have these landlords listen. Marketing materials would be helpful, explaining programs, agency support, risk mitigation, and any other incentive opportunities. And partner information sessions may help new partners, including landlords, learn about programs and connect with existing partners. Under landlord incentives, certainly signing bonuses would be good. And they help turn a seemingly high-risk situation into an investment opportunity. And emphasizing that incentives can be used to pay additional months' rent up front, provide an increased security deposit, offer a one-time payment to the landlord, kind of like a bonus, cover application expenses, and improve units like build fences, repair fences, purchase and install appliances, washers, dryers, microwaves, and replace worn fixtures or, internal components like doorknobs or hinges or carpeting or, garbage disposal, things like that. And then really explain the Rapid Rehousing Risk Mitigation Fund when recruiting landlords, and share information about that Rapid Rehousing Risk Mitigation Fund, which provides up to $2,500 in extra security. And furthermore, to assure landlords that by noting that this fund has only been used 3 times since January of 2018, as in it hasn't been necessary, that we've gotten good tenants are in there and being assisted. And then there's suggested verbiage that's pretty cool, like landlords are heroes. Every time they open their doors to our clients, they're part of building a better community. And face-to-face visits are suggested rather than phone calls. Also, there's the necessity to work with clients to ensure continued stability. And this includes identifying and addressing challenges and providing resources like workforce development. Routine tenancy assessments may provide this opportunity. And then possibly mediate between the landlord and client as needed. Bearing in mind that landlords typically don't want to file an eviction get that process started. And well-managed mediations can result in the landlord continuing their relationship with the agency or program, even if the specific landlord-tenant relationship is no longer viable. But if they see you care and were invested, that's important. Assisting landlords as much as possible in mediating issues, and collaborate with partner agencies to fill unit vacancies. The needs that we have are flexible funding to support landlord incentives and marketing materials highlighting the benefits of programs and participation for landlords. Additional recommendations include subsidies and vouchers are incredibly helpful. And I thought this was really important, is provide training opportunities for tenants that may help them prepare for or maintain housing. This includes, but is not limited to, rental counseling, apartment upkeep, understanding lease agreements, etc. And then the landlord priorities include stability and security in rental income and property maintenance, clear and routine communication, and a streamlined process. So 2 things I just want to note here. I think the flexible funding to support landlord incentives is really important. And, as we look at our gaps as gap analysis, as we look towards our advocacy committee that I'm part of as well, and as I look towards trying to get more faith-based communities involved, I think about advocating even to non-entitlement communities in the area that perhaps they could contribute funds to landlord incentives, because then it would be a lot more flexible, those funds, and we could show exactly what it would help us do, maintain housing for people who are working, and people who are getting on their feet. And then the other thing, the training opportunities for tenants to help them be good tenants. Again, I think that's a good option for volunteers to get some training and then be educators to a tenant about what it means to be a good tenant. But it's just a thought. So those were the takeaways from those meetings. Any questions? Or I'm going to switch my view so I can see if anybody's.
Hey, Kathleen, I shared out a link to a website for Rent Connect, which is out of Miami-Dade, which I had learned about them at the last Florida Housing Coalition conference last year. And I'm going to put a couple pictures I just took of their brochure that kind of like is a good example, kind of what it sounds like our navigators and landlord liaisons were saying they could use. But I thought this one was pretty cool because it really like highlights, the benefits of being a participant, but they also do, they actually do kind of a little newsletter for their landlords too that helps like highlight some of the people that have benefited from regaining the access to the housing. So it personalized it, like you help make a difference in this person's life. And now, this is what's going on now kind of thing. And that helps kind of get others on board too. But I thought this was really good because it talks about, it's just like an easy handout thing for making the case. And then also, like, I know you've been very tied in with our faith-based partners, but some of them may be property owners as well. But this might be an easy peasy thing that could be handed out to them about getting connected and how they would sign up and that kind of thing too. So I just put those in the comments.
Thank you. Good. I still need to understand how robust, or even if they're operational, Pinellas County Home Share. Are they still there?
Yeah,
Are
and
you here?
actually, Area Agency on Aging has had really good luck with getting people's buy-in on, I think, on both sides of that, having a room available on that side of things if they're struggling to pay their house bills, and then also getting people to accept. So I know Anne Marie's, I don't think she's on today, but.
Okay. All right. Okay. Do we have any, we don't have any more questions? I can't see anyone's hands. I lost here we go. All good. Then I think, do we have any public comment or questions from anyone online? Doesn't look like it. All right. Kevin, you all good? Close out the
Yeah, I
meeting?
think we're all good. Have a thank you for everyone for your involvement, participation, thoughts, ideas today. There's no other items. We'll go ahead and call this meeting adjourned. And it is ahead of schedule by a few minutes, 3:24.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I hope
guys.
everyone has a good weekend.
Thank you.
Oh, Victoria's asking me to prompt my Foley on Broadway, and I would love to have anyone show up to this, because this is participants of Foley across all our programs and housing programs, and we'll be doing a Broadway theater production of The Wedding Singer next Thursday and Friday at the Catherine Hickman Theater in Gulfport. You can go to our Facebook page or website for a link for the tickets. They're very reasonable, but I would love to see you all there. And you might even get to see me on stage as some character. I always make a cameo. So if that's all a need to entice you to come, then come see that.
We have a bet going on internally, so there will be several HLA staffers there, and I will be there, of course. And I said Billy Idol, but I was being that was my first guess. I was being polite. I'm really going for Sideburns Lady or Meatball Lady. I don't know. It's or John Lovitz. It's so tough. It's tough.
It'll be fun. We'll be there for sure.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.